All right, everybody, welcome to our live number 4. Wow, we're getting in there. We're almost to a full hand. If you how I talk to my kids about things, almost a full hand. So, guys, welcome to augforums.com/live, our number 4 broadcast. Today, we will be talking about automation steps and the new workflow engine, how they kind of compare. This will be a first of a 2-part series. And the second part, we'll kind of do a little bit deeper dive into some of the questions that may get raised today. So it'd be kind of a good parallel to have both of those. Before we get into the heart of things, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping here, kind of help keep the lights on here at augforums.com/live. So if you're out there, you want to show us some love, first thing you can do is check out augforums.com/sponsors. Take a look at those. Our sponsors love clicks, so please click, check out what they're offering, and give them any feedback. Take a look. The next thing I want to bring up is the Rolodex. So augforums.com/Rolodex, a great place to put your name out there, find other people dealing with Acumatica, and just kind of start your own community and grab resources. So it takes less than 60 seconds, just jump on out there and add yourself to that Rolodex. And lastly, we love having you come to the augforums.com/live broadcasts on every 2 weeks. But if you want more of a structure of a different format, take a look at the podcast. My partner in crime, the producer here, Mr. Tim Rodman, he does these podcasts. So take a look at those. They cover a wide variety of topics. You can also hit them up, and if you'd like to be able to be a part of one of the podcasts. And so, Tim, how can they hit you up if they want to be part of one of the podcasts?
Yeah, if you just go to that podcast page, there's a contact me link there, and that's probably the best way to volunteer. I'm always looking for guests on the podcast.
Thank you. I got to be on podcast lucky number 13. So and look what happened to me. I think we have a live show, so you never know what'll happen if you become one of Tim's victims. So, guys, welcome to this. The first comment, of course, in our live events is, where's everybody physically located today? So I see someone here is in Maryland. It's good to see Maryland. I'm personally now in Florida, and before this, I was in Northern Virginia, so I know the Maryland area well, that DC area. So my home roots there. Ooh, another country, Canada. Ooh, some good ones coming up. So, guys, keep throwing it out there. Oh, Florida representing. There we go. We need to have more Florida people. All right, guys. So what are automation steps? What is the new workflow engine? Another question to kind of throw out there to the audience: how many of you guys are using automation steps in some capacity? So if you want to throw out kind of, hey, I'm using them. I used a ton of them. I do a lot of automations with them. Kind of give us a sense of what you're doing with the automation steps, and we'll kind of use some of that as we go into some of the explanations today. And so first things first is just a quick overview. And Tim, I think you had a great overview when we were talking earlier. So I'll pass it to you for a couple minutes to kind of get into just a quick, broad overview, and then we'll dig into things a little bit deeper.
Okay. Let me get my appropriate screen shared here. So my goal in showing this is to point out that we think automation steps are going away. So if you've been using them, I think you want to start preparing for converting what you have in your automation steps over to the new workflow engine. And what I've got up here is a 2020 R2 environment, and I'm looking at the sales order screen. And the sales order screen in Acumatica is probably one of the more, I would say maybe even the most complicated screen in terms of what's going on behind the scenes from a developer standpoint. And there's just a lot going on the screen. and a lot of logic running in the background. Now, a lot of that logic in this 2020 R2 environment is actually in automation steps. So if I take the screen ID and I go over to automation steps, and I pull up sales orders, and then I go to step ID, you can see there are pages and pages of automation steps. And each one of these has its own logic associated with it. Things like what reports are going to show up on the menu, what fields are going to be available. And I can just keep paging through here. You can see there's just a lot of automation steps on this sales order screen. So that's in 2020 R2. Now, if I flip over to 2020 R1, and I always like pointing out for anyone running Acumatica locally, there's a nice little trick. Normally, you're probably used to running it on localhost. If you use this 127.0.0.1, you can even do a .0.0.2, .3, .4, and you can have multiple instances open at the same time. So I'm doing that here. So I'll pull up that same sales order screen, and there's two things I want to point out once it loads up here. First thing I want to point out is that if I open up the step ID, once it loads, when I open up the step ID, we should see that it's going to be empty. So all of those pages and pages of automation steps that we saw in 2020 R2 are now completely gone in 2021 R1. Then I also get this warning, and it's telling me that this screen uses the new workflow engine. All automation steps will be ignored. So they've been marching through, and they started in the CRM area probably, it might have been 2020 R1 a year ago, and they've been marching through the system, and I was hard pressed to find a screen that did not have this warning on it, but I did find one in the manufacturing area. So let me pull that one up. We pull up this production order maintenance screen. We can see that there is one automation step. So maybe I wanted to still utilize this to go in and maybe disable the production ticket report on the menu. I could do that. But there's not that many that you can still do automation steps on. So what I suspect will happen is we're eventually going to see this screen and all the others have their automation steps replaced. You'll get a yellow icon on everything. And I would suspect that eventually this automation step screen will go away entirely.
All right. Great kind of starting overview there, Tim. Thank you. And again, anyone out there, if you have any experience of this or any questions, throw them out there in the chat on the YouTube channel, and we'll make sure we talk about some of your experiences out there with both of these, with both automation steps and the new workflow engine, if you guys do have any experience with the new workflow engine. So talking about some of the key differences, the first biggest one, and Tim, if you can go ahead and share, put my screen up. So for anyone out there with experience with automation steps, you'll know that it's embedded, it's actually in Acumatica. So as you get in Acumatica, it's just a screen there. You can set it, and there's no customization. There's no projects needed. There's no publishing needed. So for better or for worse, none of that's possible. It did make moving things across companies more difficult because you couldn't just bring in your automation steps. So with the new workflow engine, it is a customization. So as you look at, I'll bring here real quick, customization projects, you'll see I actually have a project named Workflow 2021 R1. So that is an actual project. So you are going to be doing some low code work here, or no code work, however you want to kind of phrase that. But it is a project. So that gives you two, and I'll go ahead and bring up the project again. That means two things. One of which you can then share that amongst companies or instances, or if you're a partner, you can share that across any of your customers and kind of have some default workflows that you may want to give to everybody. Very easy to do that. You just can export that customization, send it to them, and they have that. So a huge benefit. The downside, though, is that it is a customization which does require publishing. So in the middle of the day, if you wanted to make any changes, then it would require that publishing, and that would kick everybody out of Acumatica in what they're doing. It doesn't take long to do, so it may not be a big deal, but I know that in general, here at Xbyte, they're not a fan of us trying to publish stuff in the middle of the day. So I want to make sure you guys realize that as far as a key difference is just that technology piece of it. And then with the automation steps, it's more of a scripting. With the workflow engine, it is compiled, of course, because it is a project. So that could benefit from a performance standpoint. So just in the technology, it gives us two or three key differences right there. Now, anyone familiar with the automation steps, and I haven't seen anyone chiming in with some of their experiences yet, but if you are experienced with that, and let me go ahead, I'll bring up, I know it's always risky to do, but let me go ahead, I'll even bring up our production environments. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to bring up automation steps. And so as Tim was showing earlier, and let me go ahead and bring up sales orders, and it's you can see here, you got to flip through a bunch of stuff. Okay, all these screens you can add stuff to. There's a lot of noise in this. And so you finally get to, here's the one you needed. You can, of course, just use the screen ID to find it. But there's a lot, pages and pages of these. So if you wanted to kind of simplify things, you would need to kind of come into here with each of these and just turn it off as being active. You may want to just kind of set one of these per status. So as opposed to, you end up having to go to a lot of different places to do anything. And so it is kind of a pain. And you've got to make sure you have your conditions right. Then have your actions in here. You have your fields list right here, so you can set default values. So I'll kind of pull up something that we have. And so we've disabled some stuff, hidden some other things. So it's, as you can see, it does take a lot to try and manage all of this. And anyone who's tried to add even like a simple report to screens, it's a pain to kind of have then add it to all the different possible combinations here. So it is much simpler in the workflow, but it does take getting used to. So in showing this, you'll see things like, okay, you want to set min-max values, default value. So all of these you'll find also when you look at the fields of workflows, but they've also added some stuff to it. If you look at actions, there's the same stuff you're going to see here when you look at workflows, but more as well. And we'll touch on some of that today. And then conditions. They've actually lessened the need for conditions for things. And it's made it simpler because you don't have massive different conditions for things. And based on what they've done in other areas, they've removed the need for some of this. And I have a working example that we'll go through today to kind of show off some of that. So I'll go ahead and let me show. Here's just a sales order screen, and it's the same one Tim showed. That is probably the most complex of all the screens. So I'm going to go ahead and then bring up, and here's the customization product I created, just the Workflow 2021 R1. And what I did is, and I don't know if this is best practice or not. We have some experts coming in on round 2 of this, and so we'll have them give us some of those best practices. But what I do is I came in, and it gives you some default system workflows. I just went ahead and deactivated those, made new ones based off those, and then I can go ahead and edit these. These did not allow me to make any kind of edits. So that was my first step. And here we have these right here. And this is telling me, hey, if the order type is SO, here's my workflow. And then this is telling me that I have different states based off of the status. So by default, this is telling me status is my state identifier, then my workflow is the behavior or this type. So we have SO. So I'm going to go ahead and go into here. And this is now going to show me, and this may be a little scary for people when they look at all the different possibilities, but what you're really looking at is how you can transition out of each of the different stages. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to the open one that I created right here, or that I modified. And I added a couple of actions to this. So very similar to what you may have been used to before. I have update description zeta and update description alpha. Just two really simple buttons I created. And you may be thinking to yourself, hey, is it really that easy to create buttons? And it is. You go to your actions menu right here. And here is update description alpha. And if you look at it, it's just a display name. I'll get into this hidden piece in a second here. But then you're just basically saying, okay, where do you want it? Top level, or if you wanted the actions menu or inquiries menu or any of that. And then what you want it to do at that point. If it's open a report, you can set all that up in that up on the right hand side. But it's just that easy. I mean, in my case, all I'm doing is changing a field name or changing a field value. So the key thing here is that, and I'll give you a real world example for us. We have quotes, and you may deal with opportunities or quotes, but when you're looking at that, and we wanted it to change, okay, the probability, and as opposed to having we want to make it a little bit easier for our sales team, because for whatever reason, salespeople need it to be super easy, or it's the most complicated thing in the world. So having them have to know to go to a field to change a probability from 10 to 25% may be a little difficult. No offense to any salespeople, but that is a lot of work. But a button is okay. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a little sample here of just how a button can impact a field, but you could have it a custom field as well, any of that type of stuff. So I just said, okay, I click this button, it updates my description to alpha. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. And I have this hidden option as well. And so that's an advanced feature that's not available in automation steps. So for any of those with experience with automation steps, if you wanted to add some sort of an extra step where you only show a button under certain conditions, you would end up having to create a new automation step, put some conditions in there, and then have that show or hide a button. So not the easiest flow out there. So in the new workflow engine, to accomplish that, I just added a condition, and I'll go ahead and I'll open up its alpha condition right here. And what you'll see is that I just said, okay, if the description equals alpha, then it makes this condition true. And then I've also one, I called it Zuba in the beginning, but I then changed it to, for anyone who knows me, Zuba is like my made-up word for anything. Like, it doesn't even matter what it's called. You can call it Zuba. But then I didn't realize I didn't have an opposite of Zuba, so I didn't change it to Zeta. So anyway, each of these basically say, so if it's alpha, then this makes it true. So let's go back to our actions. And so in this tells me, hey, if it's alpha, make this hidden. Super easy to do that. So you see, like the low code area that Acumatica is moving to, I didn't have to write any C# code. I didn't have to go to the code platform at all. It was really just in these more of a wizard-driven approach. And so let me go ahead and show you how that works in real time or in real life. So I published that customization, and we're now looking at an actual sales order. And so you can see here that my update description alpha button is missing because the description is alpha. So if you looked at that variable, hey, that was true, that condition was true, so that it hides that. Now I click on this button, update description to zeta, and it changes my description to zeta, and now my update description zeta button is hidden, and I now see an update description alpha. So very simple ways to kind of control some of that flow of things. So if you're going back to the example that if we want to do something where we could actually progress things through, let's say 5%, 10%, 25%, if you wanted to kind of do some of that probabilities, then you could have a button that said update to 25% if that was 10%. And then if you clicked on that and moved it to 25%, you get another button that said update to 50% if that was 25%. So you could set up these conditions so that the update 25% only showed if this equaled to 50%, or whatever, how you wanted to set that up. So it makes it very easy to do any of these kinds of things without a lot of work or having to get into the code section. And someone wrote in here, how did you make a copy of one of the read-only system workflows? So I'll get into that right here. So you right here, I will make one for quotes. So I say add workflow, and I'm going to extend a system workflow. I'm going to extend the quote workflow, and I'm going to make it a quote workflow type, and it gives the name quote, and I say OK. And now I have a quote one. I'm going to go ahead and check off that box to make it active, and I'll save this. And I'd already deactivated my quote workflow right here. So now this is my new workflow for when it's workflow type of QT. And I can click on this and I can make any edits I want to it. And you'll see here, it'll tell you right away if there's been any modifications to things, or if it's just inherited it from the base workflow. So if I show you my sales order one, you'll see here open is modified because I added those conditions to added those the actions here. Let me click here again, and here's my open state, and I added these two actions right here. And there's no edit property to this, but if I go to my actions menu, that's where it's defined, and we saw that. You can do more fancy stuff with dialog boxes. We'll definitely get into more of that on the second version of this, but we definitely wanted today's to be more of just a, hey, let's get everyone at least knowledgeable about some of the differences, and then we'll be taking questions for the next few weeks before our round 2 of workflows, and to kind of establish, okay, hey, what do we want some of these experts from? We're having experts from Acumatica join us to walk us through, because this is an area that in my talks with customers and with partners out there, not a lot of people were really making use of the automation steps and the workflows yet. So it's an area that we wanted to kind of expose everyone to, so that they knew what was out there that is new, or even for people who didn't know about automation steps, so that they can realize what's possible out there when they're taking a look at the new workflow engine. So let me see if anyone out there had any questions or experiences. I say one issue you have is the inability to structure SO automation steps based on order type. I think this will help solve our problems. The interesting thing with that, with order types, at Xbyte, we ran into an issue with order types because you can't change that. So we ended up having to create our own, what we call status. I think as we call it, order status, which allows us to basically create different types. And allowed us to kind of create different types, and we even use that to then change the footer on our sales orders. So if we want to have one that's called like the pro forma, we can do a pro forma, and it changes the title. It changes the title of our sales order to pro forma and changes the footer. Maybe we want to have different links, different things when we say it's a pro forma invoice, pro forma versus a normal sales order, or anything like that. So an RMA is the same sort of thing. We wanted to add that, or if we have different types of sales orders. So as opposed to using the order type, because again, I knock on salespeople, they easily can start something and not realize, oh, hey, oh no, I wanted to make it this type of thing, not this other type. And then they've already started it, they've already saved it. So instead of making them make a copy of it and make a change of an order type, and then have to go back and delete the original one, because who knows if there's payments attached to it and all this kind of stuff, we made our own value for that. So our own custom field for that. So the very interesting with the how Acumatica has their order types, kind of locking that down. So Brendan couldn't do his SO automation steps based on order type. Yeah, they had behavior, which is kind of like order type when I was looking at automation steps in our production environment.
Hey Ryan, I just created a discussion topic for a place to capture questions for the next broadcast. I think I'll post it in the chat. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, throw it up there. Now with this, if you're welcome, if you're not already a member of augforums.com, then definitely join up, and they'll give you a chance to kind of participate in some of the chats on that community platform. You can also post any kind of questions you want into this YouTube broadcast. I agree with you. They should have a training class at Summit for this. And there he goes. Tim just posted up the link to the agforums.com discussion thread. So again, today we wanted to just kind of whet everyone's appetite, kind of show them what's possible, because and then have everyone out there, have you guys start messing around with the workflow engine, coming up with your questions. One of my first things I tried to do, and I'll give you guys a little warning on this one, is I figured, okay, let me do my workflow, then let me click on the sales order screen right here, and let me hit preview changes, because that would be awesome to see all my workflow changes before I publish. It did not work. So just a word of warning that preview changes, at least in the beta version, I'm assuming that holds true for the production version of 2021. Preview changes did not take into account any changes to the workflow that you created. I believe it showed
there, Ryan, that
yeah.
The first official version of 2021 R1 just dropped 2 days ago. So actually my 2021 environment was using that. I noticed an issue already there, but it is available, the first official version.
Apparently my techies here are not cool enough to get to have downloaded and installed that one for me. So I was running off the beta. So Tim, you are cooler than me.
I was kind of bragging a little bit there.
I guess being like Acumatica cooler is like my kids last time when they became internet famous, because I mentioned them on the broadcast. So anyway, so the guys, we tried again, as I mentioned, give a base understanding, show you guys what's out there, allow everyone who attended to start playing around with workflows more, and then join that discussion thread, post all of your questions there, and we're locking down an official date, but we should have a couple team members, including Doug Johnson from Acumatica, joining us for a Q&A, a live Q&A, and some live actual setting up of workflows. So we'll try and kind of stump the experts, so to speak. So we'll bring questions to them, have them try and set some stuff up live, and see what happens. So live is always fun because you never know what's going to happen. Oop, I hear Tim's demand. Zero love for me? All right, Tim, you demand apparently.
Geeks appreciate geeky things.
I know. So guys, yeah, take a look. I did a quick showing of how I created new workflows and inherited from the base workflows. So you can go and make edits to things. So go try that out. Add actions, add conditions. We didn't really get into this, but you also have the fields that you can set similar to automation steps, where you can come in and set different field values, either globally, or you can go ahead and and let's say in RMA, you can come in here and you could add field definitions as well. If something that we do here is when we do any RMAs, we actually have a custom field that we added to have more notes about why the RMA was getting created. Of course, there's the notes for the order, but we wanted ones and we had them show up on the page, and we had the background yellow to make sure that the people knew to plug stuff in there. And then what we do is we put in a default value, which is basically a prompt for all the questions we want answered. And so same sort of thing here. You can put in a default value, and then you could put in whether or not that field is hidden or not, and based on just the order type. So that could have been done at this higher level, and then you only have to do it once. So kind of a cool way of kind of setting something up and figuring out whether or not you want to hide the field or not, just globally. And so you don't have to go to each single automation step and set that up. If you were in automation steps, you'd have to go to every single one of them and define whether or not you want a field shown. So if anyone's ever added fields to automation steps, it is an absolute pain, because we had certain fields which were only for certain types, and we had to go into every single stage of our automation steps to hide them for sales orders, because they were only return fields. So kind of a big pain. This makes it way easier by being able to define conditions and then just setting them for that field globally right here. So some nice stuff. Guys, again, please go play around. Go to augforums.com, post your questions in there, and we'll have Doug along with one or two other experts from Acumatica there to answer your questions, and stay tuned for that official date. We're just shoring that up this week for everyone's schedules. So guys, thank you very much for attending today. Can you launch an app in a workflow? That is a great question, Tune, to post in the augforums.com. Tim, I don't know if you've tried anything like that for launching an app from a workflow.
Yeah, I wonder, Tune, what kind of app you're thinking, like a local Windows app? Or I mean, if it's a modern web app, it'd just be a link, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I know we've added links just through normal code, but I don't know if you can add it, because before they had the side panels that could go to, or the links that could go to anywhere within generic inquiries. We had it just on the input screen. We had it go to some outside sources for for quick Google searching or something, or we have some other to go to manufacturer site. So calculation for something.
Yeah, I would think any type of calculation you might need to write code for, right? To go off and calculate some numbers, bring them back.
I don't know. You know what, Tune? Go to the forum and post some more specifics, and we'll press on Acumatica and I really want to stump them with things, like throw out some creative solutions and not only have them see what they can come up with, but maybe someone in the meantime will, just part of the forums, will have a creative solution for something. So I've found that a lot of times you throw something out in the world and someone creative will see it, and they'll be inspired to come up with something unique that was never done before. And I've seen that a lot of times on different communities out there. So throw it out there and we'll see what we can do. So guys, thank you again for coming on board, being part of live number 4. Thank you to, is it producer Tim? Producer Tim?
Yeah, I think that's the word we're set around. Hey, before you wrap up real quick, Ryan, one more thing. I'll put that discussion topic down in the description on this video in case you want to come back and reference it later so you don't have to find it buried in the chat. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So yeah, so guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Producer Tim, for helping put on this event for everybody. And as we said, check out the new workflow engines. Check out the new workflow engines. Play around with it. Post your feedback, and we'll try and stump the experts. And maybe in one of the coming live events, we'll have a creative hat contest. So we'll have everyone kind of bring in their Tim Rodman inspired hats, and we'll post pictures or something in the chat. So we'll see if we can make something like that happen. But guys, thank you again. Thank you very much. In 2 weeks, on whatever 2 weeks from today is, April 1st. Ooh, April Fool's Day. We have a rebuttal. So Tim and I geeked out on generic inquiries 2 weeks ago, and so we have the rebuttal for reports. So we have an expert on the reports coming in to try and build his case onto why reports are the best platform for reviewing data. So we'll kind of see. There we go. Great job, Ryan. Thank you. There we go. We'll have reports coming on board to kind of for that rebuttal, and then 2 weeks after that, we have Gabriel from Velixo coming on to kind of say, hey, no, you know what, reports, generic inquiries, they have their place, but you know what, Excel is better. So we'll have the battle royale of all the reporting techniques over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thank you guys again very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.